This is basic beginner Dotloop training. We used to do Dotloop training as part of your technology training, which made the technology training about 6 hours instead of the 4.5 that it is now. And basically, we are now doing each of these once a month. We're going to do these basic beginner classes. And it's going to do the training that we used to do on the technology training is being done this way. So I'm not going to take the time to go through all of the pieces across here because we really have gone over that with you in the previous pieces. Of the two other pieces up here, your account piece over here, going into the account piece to make sure that all of your information there is correct. The templates piece here, just jumping in here, and again, once we leave that home screen that they give you now, it's giving us the signature colors, which I just wish they would have kept the signature colors on the front page. I don't know why they got rid of them. But in this templates piece, I'm just here to remind you that the templates icon is the master copy filing cabinet. When you are in this icon piece here, you can look up any document you might need in version now. You can look up any documents that you want to look at. You will not be able to type on them in this section. That happens once you pull it into your file. Dotloop is the company who runs this. Dotloop is the company, so they call them loops. Loops, deals, files, transactions, they all become interchangeable. Okay, we're talking about the same exact thing. So once you pull it into a loop or into a file, that's when you'll be able to do the editing of those pieces in here. If you needed something quickly, you could download it, print it out, grab it, and go and fill it in by hand. That's what you would use the templates piece. So we're going to come over here to the loops face over here. It's that, kind of odd-looking smiley face, no eyes, no nose, kind of creepy to me. But anyway, and I'm in our demo account. And I'll be honest with you that majority of the time when I do training, I'm in your individual accounts for this. So just be prepared that if something doesn't work, it's because it's the first time I'm training and doing it completely in the demo account as opposed into an actual agent's account. So a couple things I wanted to show you is majority of the time, your loops page will start like this. These squares here. What used to be circles, because circles went with Dotloop, and the loops that they like to call them, they've now transitioned over to calling to these grid squares. The grid square is much better than the circle because it does give you more information. When we just had a circle, all the circle told you was, here's the name of the loop, that's it. At least here now you can see that this June Road one that we did previously another year, that I can tell that it's a listing, that we kept it as a private listing, the price has not been entered, and this is from 2016. Okay, we closed it in 2016. So the idea here is, you can go from grid, you have a choice of grid. You could also choose list, and that was the view that I was on previously, was the list view. And then they even have a smaller compact view over here, which looks more like email pieces. If that works for you, that's great. I'm a list person rather than the big squares all over the place. Hey there, Cody. There's a packet of papers up front and a sign-in sheet. I'm more of the grid person, the list view over here. It makes it just a little bit easier for me to see. I do like that one of the changes they made when they went to those squares is it now gives you so much more information. So that's the important part about that. And no matter where you land on here, there is a search bar here. And the search bar, I forget what the technical term for it is, but it's the idea that as soon as you start typing the name of a street, it will zero in on that. It's not, you don't have to put in a 611, Maple Ave kind of thing. If you just type in Maple Ave, it should zero in on that. It will sort of, it's kind of gotten a little bit looser in its search, meaning that if I pull in Maple and I have somebody who was Mary, it's going to start pulling in Mary's loop too, but further down on the list. So again, it's got its quirks to it still. Okay, so, should bring one of these packets over to me because of the idea of, oh, let me go through it with you. Couple things I need you folks to write in that packet that I just gave you. On the very front page, up at the yellow where it says, please use Chrome or Firefox, what I typically always write for everybody is write a number 1 over Chrome and a number 2 over Firefox. The idea here is that we've had the least amount of issues when you use Chrome, and that's what I typically use. I'm a Chrome girl. That's where I usually do all my work. So that's why I want you to sit, I'm basically telling you, go with that, make that your first choice as well. The issue that we have sometimes with Chrome is, if you go to print something out, make sure you always download it first and print from the download. If you go directly to print in Chrome, it will sometimes move the words around. It's the weirdest thing ever. Or sometimes it will cut off the signature boxes at the bottom of the page. So you always, the workaround is, always be sure to download first, so let it generate the preview so it fits onto the page, and then print from the preview, no problem. Firefox. The issue we have with Firefox from time to time is, if Firefox does not automatically update, as Chrome usually does, if the Firefox does not update and an older version is what you're using, it will flash the print that you want to type at or that you have just typed and disappears again. It's still there, but you just can't see it, like to check to see where you're printing and things like that. So that would be a clue to you that, oh, I've got to update my Firefox, or better yet, jump over to Chrome, kind of thing. The other thing I want you to write in the upper corner there, in that big white space there, is I want you to write the PA broker license. That's the one that I have committed to memory, and I think majority of you are PA only. New Jersey, I can get it for you if you're New Jersey. Cody, are you New Jersey? Yeah, I thought so. I think the rest of you are all just PA, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the PA broker license number is RB065551. The reason I'm giving that to you is, in your account section, there's a section there where you can put in the broker number, but we don't put it there because of the quirk in the system. It's going to want to pull it in at the wrong time, kind of thing. And as I just remembered that the last time I taught a class, my husband called me in the middle of it, and I became very embarrassed because the song that I have is his ringtone. I'm like, they're like, oh, let it play. I'm like, oh no, let's not do that. Okay, so we're going to jump right into adding a loop. So basically, we are going to the very bottom of the front page of the packet, where it says creating and managing a loop. So what do? We click the plus sign to start to name the loop. Majority of the time, whenever you're turning things in, it's the property address we are focusing on. So what for our test ones, I'm going to use 614 June Road. I use the date. And as you can see, right below there, it is starting to generate from Google Maps actual addresses. Hear me say this. Never, never, never click on the property that's generated there. The reason is, if you click on that property that's generated there, okay, because again, you'll be using real properties, I'm using pretend. So for me, it doesn't work today. But for the real properties, you're now leaving a blueprint, a footprint somewhere in cyberspace that you have created this loop. And Dotloop, the system-wide Dotloop, is going to remember that, oh, you created this loop at that moment, and anybody else who comes in has the opportunity to say, oh, Sharon created that loop. Do you want me to connect you with that loop that Sharon created? I have found in the 9 years of me being around real estate that most agents are control freaks, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that in a positive way. You like to control things for the benefit of your client. And as soon as something pops up that you're not thinking is going to happen, panic sets in, at least for me, okay? So the idea is, if they were able to connect these two together, their folder will just automatically show up in your loop that you started. And then it comes the question of, how'd that get there? Why is it there? Where did it come from? I think Dotloop should have to have it where the person who created the loop, started it, should have to agree to let you connect it, but of course that doesn't happen. So the workaround is just type the address, do not click on any of those pieces that is generated by the system, okay? So I'm gonna come in here and we're gonna put in Langhorne. And as soon as I do that, there's no properties around here that are 614 June Road in Langhorne. That is what the office cares about. The office cares about addresses, all right? I could put anything I want. So beyond that, I'm gonna come in here and put in test listing loop, okay? And that's what I wanna call this one. I want anybody in our office to know that that's not a real property. You as an agent, you might go the extra step of doing Langhorne, PA, okay? Because there could be a Levittown, PA and a Levittown, New Jersey, I don't know. You never know. So go ahead and just put the state in there if you are both states kind of thing. And then what I'm gonna do is come down here and continue. Before I hit the continue button, I do want to mention, this is what I'm talking about for listing pieces. When you're working with buyers, we've now changed our thinking. The beginning was new property for your buyer, new loop that you're doing. And that has become a little bit cumbersome. So the thinking now has switched around to be, when you start a loop with buyers, it is perfectly okay to call that loop Buyer Loop Sharon and Joe Germscheid, okay? Because then you know that these are the people that you're working with. When you open up that file, you're gonna have the first folder within the file be the property that we are gonna put an offer in. So if I put an offer in 111 Summers Ave, and we don't get that one, I can then move on to a new property under that same loop name and say, okay, Sharon and Joe, my buyers, are now moving on to 222 Walnut Street, okay? Darn, we didn't get that one either, okay? Open up a new folder in that same loop. My buyers now, Sharon and Joe, are moving on to 333 Evergreen Way. Yay! That's the one that they get. Fantastic. I'm going to archive the other two, and now when I go to turn this paperwork into the office, name the paperwork 333 Evergreen Road in Langhorne, and that's the one that we're turning into the office. Once you turn it into the office, make it the name of the address they're getting. Does that make sense? What that does now is it compartmentalizes all of the properties that Sharon and Joe put their offers in on right in one location, instead of having to look at your entire list of, and again, not so bad when you're starting out and new to the system, but as you get busier and busier, you don't want to have to look through 50 loops to remember, was that the one I did with Sharon and Joe, or was that the one I did with Sharon and Joe? The other thing is that you can easily, within that loop of called the buyer's loop, you can easily make copies of things from one folder to the next, or slide from one folder to the next. There was a time where you could not move from this folder to here just by dragging it to the next folder. Thank the Lord, they fixed that, and you can have the ability to do that. The other perk of that is, let's say they're moving on to their second offer that they need to put out, that they need to put in there, and first offer comes back to you and says, hey Sharon, hey John, are your clients still interested in that house? Because our buyers walked, because maybe somebody lost their job and they walked away, couldn't buy the house anymore. Our deal fell apart, are your clients still interested? Now again, you don't have to go back searching, and everything's contained in that folder. That's why I'm more of the mindset of something like the consumer notice, the buyer agency contract, the BFI, buyer's financial information, and perhaps a mortgage pre-approval. Those would be the four pieces that my brain as a non-agent says, that's probably what you're going to start with your buyers and have set up originally. You can either slide it from one folder to the next or make copies. That way your one folder is a complete deal. You move on to the next one, that's a complete deal. You move on to the next one, that's a complete deal. So you can make copies from one. The difference, I'll show you, the difference between dragging and dropping means dragging means it's going to just move from one folder to the next. Copies means it still exists in this folder, and now I'm putting it down in this folder. Okay, so that's a couple things there. All right, so I'm going to hit continue because on the listing side, and we always do a listing piece, Upload a photo if you want, I never do, just skip that. And now it's gonna let us go into viewing the loop right here in the bottom. So it's the bottom corner. Again, what used to be one step, they've made now 3, 4 steps. And I'm all about let's make it the easiest possible, but you know, I don't control how they make things. So here we are in the loop. Again, signature colors of our red, the white, the black. If you ever are in Dotloop and it is light blue, yellow, and white, don't do your paperwork. That is treating you either as a client or an outside Keller Williams agent kind of thing. It's the wrong, and I have found that sometimes when an agent will send you something through Dotloop and you're outside of our office and you're not connected, then you might be in the blue profile of that. And that just means, well, I'm sending it through Dotloop that way, and that way you just copy it into the loop that you need to do, kind of. Okay. So here we are with 614 June Road. When you move on to the second page of your training packet right here, the second thing it asks us to do is scroll down to the people section down here, okay? So here is the people that are already in this loop. We have me as Princess Leia in here, so this is when Jillian and I were very much into, oh, let's do Star Wars piece in here, we all love that. Give yourselves the role. It's really important to remember to assign roles. So it's going to be listing agent over here. It already has our email address associated with it over here. And then now I'm going to add the client. The client I'm adding today is good old Mickey Mouse. Here would be when you are having this person already in your e-edge contacts, it will recognize. That's why these are popping up over here going, is this the Mickey Mouse you mean? And I could pull Mickey Mouse in there. I'm not going to use any of those emails today. But I am going to put an email in here for him. Let's go ahead and put in 614. Trying to be really careful with my, and again, I have used this one, it looks like at some point. Coming over here, and Mickey is the seller, okay? Once you give them the role of being the seller, it now wants us to complete the information in here. Oh, darn. Yep. Not when things are working like that. Let's go in here and do, I'm sorry. The piece that I was trying to get to is the idea that as soon as you assign them a role, it now expands the piece here for you to fill in. So let's go ahead and do 215 as his phone number. Obviously, he lives at this address, so we're going to come in here and put in 614. It likes for the number to be separate from June Road. The hardest part about this is the spelling piece here. Langhorne. The thing I want you to remember when adding people in is make sure that you add their information in. Do not check boxes. Do not check boxes. Down here, it's asking you to send him an intro email. You don't need to do that. And you definitely do not want to add Mickey to your team. If you add Mickey to your team, then he's going to have full access to all of these forms as if it was you working on the forms. You definitely don't want to do that, okay? You don't want him to have access here to come in and change your 6% down to 3% so that now you're working for nothing, okay? Mickey's going to be my only seller on the piece here, so there he is showing in down here. And now that I have made that, I can make that a little larger. So we can see that there he is added down here as the seller, okay? Don't forget to add the role, because I've had agents say to me, how come it doesn't pull their information in? The simple fact was you didn't give them the role, so then Dotloop doesn't know when to pull them in because you forgot to tell them that important information. After you add the sellers, the next thing I want you to do is come right over here, right below the name of the loop, to the select transaction type. It's important. Let us know, okay? So this is, our practice one is a listing for sale. It then opened up this menu right here. And when you're in here, I want you to make sure that you make it a private listing. Now this is in that second section there. I usually, when I'm sitting with somebody, circle the word private. You want to keep it a private listing because again, this is another way to make sure that other Dotloop users can't connect into yours. And what I have found is if you only make it private and yet you clicked on the Google Maps generated address, it still allows it to be found. So that's why my new teaching is don't click on the Google generated address and keep it a private listing, okay? You could go ahead and make it a pre-listing if you needed to, or just wait until you have the listing and then make sure you make it a private listing, okay? Private is really going to keep everybody else from seeing it. And then we're going in the view details section. Now there's a couple little quirks that I've recently found here. So notice that I have called this the 614 June Road Langhorne Test Listing Loop. But when I come in here to the details section, look right here where I've just moved the arrow. It now wants to default to call this the property address, which is probably going to get rid of my parentheses test listing loop, and it's going to call it Langhorne PA 19047, okay? So be cautious and check that we want to use the custom name that I am choosing. That used to be an automated thing, and then I couldn't understand why suddenly it was changing until one of the times I was training, like, that's what it is, it switched back on us, okay? So, always make sure, and check it from time to time. If you find that it is going to changing it to get rid of whatever you put in parentheses, then by all means, go ahead and you might just be calling it test. When I was working as an assistant, one of the agents I worked at, she always wanted me to call it buying loop or listing loop, buying loop or listing loop, because that just helped her look quickly at it and know that it's a buying loop or a listing loop, instead of having to look at the small little, small print kind of thing. All right, so as we move down, that's first thing I want you to do. Again, here's the people section. So if you forgot to do it first, you can do it here. Or if I now needed to add Minnie Mouse in, I could do Minnie in here as well. But the next thing you should have to go to is the property address. So again, I know we're typing it again, but again, it really only takes a few seconds to come in here and type it again. And again, it's one of the ways for us to guarantee that it is not going to allow other people in here. The idea would be that, oops, let's go back over here to, brain freeze there, sorry. It's our way of keeping control over who is allowed into your piece. That's all I would do. I would not bring in the parcel ID, because again, that's another way somebody can search for it. And later on, when you get the MLS number, don't put that in here either, okay? That's another way for people to link. So just like in Bright, the MLS system, less is more. In here, keep that same idea. Less is better, okay? Not less is more, we're going to use less is better. And at this point, all I'm going to do is come right up here to the top where there is a save button, and I'm going to save that information, okay? Later on, when you take an offer on here, you can come in here and put your contract dates in here, and then later on, but that's another class, here's where we can begin the green sheet right from Dotloop. But that's another class, so we're not going to go there, but I just like to point it out to everybody. All right, going back to the loop here. Right now, we have a manila folder in front of us, and all I've done is written in that manila folder the property address as well as the client's name, okay? I still have an empty folder. And that's exactly what we're going to do right down here. Now, the first thing I suggest doing is let's name this folder. Let's clearly state what's going to be in here. The 3 dots at the end here allow us to rename the folder, and I'm going to clearly mark it as our listing docs folder. Enter gets it to take the new name. I can see that I forgot to put a space in there. I'm ignoring that right now. The perfectionist in me wants to go and redo that, but we're not going to do that. All right. Now we're going to bring the paperwork in. So all we have to do is come here to the templates. I'm choosing the PA listing folder right here because we have put a folder together that has the majority of the paperwork already set up for you. Now, this one at the top has this office address saved anywhere it needed to be saved. For my Ben Salem folks, you will not be using this one. You will use this one at the bottom of the group here, the Ben Salem PA listing. And that just means that whenever the office address is there, that address is saved, not this one here. I'd like to point out too that none of the Langhorne folks will ever use that Ben Salem one. That's not set up for when you have a listing in Ben Salem. That is set up completely for the Ben Salem agent, just so that that address generates down there, okay? So here we are up here in the PA listing folder. We will select all, and let's take a look at this for 1 second. So here is the most up-to-date seller authorization and acceptance form that we just put in here. You are also going to find in here that we have the Levittown Home Easement Addendum, because that is located in every listing folder. This house I'm selling is where? Langhorne, not Levittown. So I can uncheck that one right here. Don't need to bring that one in, okay? Let's say this is not going to be a vacant house, then you could probably get rid of the vacant house winterization listing addendum, okay? I'm gonna just take that out too because my brain says it's June. I think we're gonna sell this before it gets cold. We're not going to need that. But my suggestion is, when in doubt, get it signed when you take the listing, because if for some reason it extends into the cold months, you've already got it done. You don't need to remember to do it later on. So my brain says, when in doubt, just pull it in. It's a couple signatures, and it's that covering you piece that is in there. You know, if the pipes freeze, they can't come back to you. It's if they didn't winterize, kind of thing, okay? So now that I've selected the files that the paperwork I want to pull in here, I'm going to click copy, and it's pulling those 9 forms into the loop. It's imported those 9, and there they are in the folder. Easy peasy, right? Okay? It's done the work for you. It's as if we have these papers already printed out and they're stored somewhere in the office without taking up all that space. Now that we're looking at the list of paperwork in here, it's gotten a little bit out of order because as new pieces are added in, they always go to the top of the pile. So if you're anything like I was as an assistant, my brain says, I want that checklist to be at the top of the list so that I know what's required of me for this. Utilize those checklists. They're there for a reason. They're there to help you know what the office needs. And what I love about those checklists is it tells you what's missing before the office tells you what's missing. So again, you're helping us do our job as well. So if I want to move the listing checklist over here, I'm going to make this just a little larger so that we can see it very clearly on the screen. I'm going, when the 4 hours are showing here, as opposed to me giving the hand over here, when the 4 hours are showing, left click and hold to drag it in place. Now be careful, if I let go too soon, it's going to say replace. You can just barely make out that it says replace with the checklist. So I'm just going to go a little bit above that so that the seller's authorization dropped down, and now I can drop it there. So it's a clear drop there, okay? If you don't want to rearrange them, by all means you don't have to, okay? When I was working at as an assistant, I like them to be in order for them, okay? Now, as an assistant, when I was brand new to the business of being an assistant in a real estate world, I was a first grade teacher before that. So coming in here, my brain said, open each document separately because I'm learning the documents. And I think that's how most new agents are going to treat it that way as well. Open each one. Now, I'm going to open each one because when I open up the listing checklist here, a window is going to pop up that says autofill. So it's recognizing, oh, I can pop in some of this information. Do you want me to do it for you? And my brain says, absolutely. And I think I'm going to try making this a little smaller so I get my, there we go. I'm just going to get my autofill button. I'm afraid that if I tried to scroll, it was going to kick me out. So I'm going to say, yeah, let it autofill for me. I'll make it larger again. Sorry for the back and forth that we're doing. But now you can see the yellow boxes have been filled in. The property address, agent name, Princess Leia. But I can come over here and I can put in, yep, we're setting up this paperwork on the 14th of June, put in the date there. Do notice that sometimes, like right here, it squishes that 0 right up against the line, which used to be everything in here always was squished up against the line. Obviously, people complained about that and said this is annoying, stop doing that, but they changed it for only some things, not everything. The crazy assistant in me would always go back and make sure there was breathing space in there, but I'm not going to do that right now. But you can see here for the 614, there's a little bit of space, and even for my name, Princess Leia, there's a little bit of space, okay? So they carefully chose where they wanted to add the space instead of having to rewrite the whole situation and make everything have a space, okay? That's all I'm going to do for this checklist, but you can see that later on when I'm about to turn the paperwork in, I will be able to come in here and I will be able to, as soon as you have the hand showing there, you can check the box, that what you're turning in. So again, you're almost checking yourself before the office has to tell you what's missing from there. That's what I like about it. Now up here there is a save button and a save and share. I always hit save because all I want to do is save this for me to come back to later on. The save and share piece means you're going to send it to a client or send it to somebody. Well, first of all, checklist is for us in the office. I don't need to send that to my client. So that's why I'm only going to hit save. And it's a really hard to see back arrow over here. It's a red on grayish black box over there, but that's my back arrow. I just wish they would have made it white. Would have made life so much easier, but again, I don't control the situation. Now, my experienced agents, they're going to come over here and they're going to say, look, I don't want to open every single one of them. I just want to open up everything but that one all at one time and let it autofill. But that's not me. And I don't think that most new agents would be doing that either, okay? So I'm going to come over here and uncheck these and just move on to the next one, okay? Now what I want to show you in here is if you accidentally close this autofill button because you got a phone call, you really meant to come up here to add a plus sign to open up bright so that you could look something up over there, but you forgot to do that, guess what? The autofill button is right here. It only shows automatically the first time you open a document. So if I happen to jump out of here for some reason and came back in, the autofill button's not going to show. But don't feel like you have to redo the typing now. Oh no, great thing is, autofill button right here. And the autofill button is different for length for every page in here. So this one is not too much. Again, let me come back down in here and do the autofill piece right in here. And again, because I'm not using a mouse on my screen, it's kind of being a little wonky. So the idea here is, this is the one that we just redid because again, we wanted to really point out this middle section here. I've bolded it, given it stars, and it's basically on this seller authorization and acceptance form. The people that you were working with as sellers, we're telling them our title company may call you, will call you for your social security number, and that's not a scam. It's the only way that they can get mortgage payoff and prove that they're looking at you as the person they're doing the deal with. So, and according to the Domestic Relations Act, that's why it's necessary. So we wanted to point that out and make it bold. So guess what? Here's a teaching moment. I'm pointing it out to you what we changed on this. And the other thing that we changed on this one is we made phone numbers required. And you can see that because I put a phone number in for Mickey's information, it has auto-filled that piece there. It put it in for both locations, when truly we don't really need it down here if Mickey's the only person signing on here. So I truly can get rid, oh, it took it out of both. Thanks so much. Okay. We just learned that lesson, all right? So again, I'm just going to save it here. Again, if it shows in both, no big deal. All right, back over here. That is a form too that I forgot to tell you, wet signatures are required for that one. We don't even have the signature boxes there. So it's not like they could electronically sign and then say, oh, I'm sorry, we need to get your real signature. They can't sign it at all. So when we set it up, when Dotloop set it up, they put the signature boxes in there. I went in and took them out. All right, so moving down to the listing contract. As a non-agent, I'm not going to go through the listing contract and tell you everything that needs to be in there. Again, I just have to get to my piece here of, see how long that is? Because there's a lot more to fill in here. Are you really not going to give me my box? Okay. All right, at least we learned that one. All right, we're going to autofill over here and let it fill in the information. Bring up my book that. Where'd it go? So, here's what I want you to see. Can you very faintly see in this gray area that we have auto-filled the office address, okay? This box that has popped up is saying to me, hey, are you sure you want me to keep that information in there? And the answer is yes, okay? So I'm going to click continue. If I click the X button to get rid of this, it would erase the office information over there and you'd have to retype it in, okay? So the idea here is now it kept that information and it's pulled in the agent information. I'll make that slightly larger so that we can see. But everything on this document is editable by you, okay? So if I want to come in here and click on, nope, they have no other previous brokerage with anybody else. If you want to come in here and put in the price, you can. As soon as you hover over something and it goes red, it tells you that it's editable, okay? We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the what ifs and ands about that kind of thing. Down here, this is where you're going to definitely put in your percentage. And over here is where you put in the broker fee. The typical broker fee for our office is $295. That $295 is paid by the client, and it's meant to cover the pieces at closing. When you go to closing, the things that are put on that green sheet, the conveyancing fee, the transaction fee, the $100 E&O insurance for the first 4 deals annually. Even the showing time, $24, is covered in that. Sometimes it's adjusted up, sometimes it's adjusted down. That just means if you're adjusting it down, you're paying for some of it, not having your client cover it all. Again, your mentors will help you realize what you have the ability to maybe raise it up or round up. Sometimes you just round it to 300 because you like those round numbers kind of thing, all right? Rather than the 295. Again, your mentors are going to help you with that piece. For this, I'm going to go ahead and do the signing because again, this example I'm going to show you is going to be doing electronic signing. Any signing that needs to be done has to be done on your end first before you send it to your client, because if you try to do it after the client, it will erase their signatures out. There is a workaround for that, but I'm not going into that right now. Okay, so as I move through this, I'm going to electronically sign for you as the agent, and here it wants to pull up Princess Leia's signature and my initials. If you wanted to try to come in here and draw it, you could, but I really only recommend that for somebody who has a stylus. So we're going back to the signature piece, and that is how it will adopt and sign it for you. It dates it and timestamps it for you. Okay, so again, you don't need to worry about adding dates and things like that. As we scroll through here, again, I'm not going in all the particulars of the piece. I'm just going to come through and do the signing for us. Because we already signed it once, it no longer asks me for the rest of this page, okay? As I come down here to this page, let's just go ahead and sign as Princess Leia.
Question, Sharon.
Yes.
Does your signature ever time out? Like, what if you meet with them and you do your listing presentation today, but then they don't actually review it with their lawyer and all of that, and it takes 3 more weeks before they're ready to actually initial it?
No, yours would not disappear.
Okay.
Yours
so
is
then
going to...
Is there like a time limit of?
I'm sure there may be. As a non-agent, I don't know that answer. I think the idea would be that if, let's say you meet with somebody, They don't go with you as their listing agent because they interviewed 3 of them and somebody was gonna give them the price that they wanted rather than the price that you said it's gonna sell at. And when it doesn't sell with that agent, because they just wouldn't back down off their price, then they realize, I should have called you gone with you to begin with. I would think that if there's any kind of time delay in there, the idea might be that you wanna just come in here and maybe update the date on here.
Okay, so once
I
you
don't know
hit save, that's editable?
No,
Oh.
you can, once you, yes, I'm sorry, you can save it as a PDF, and there's that's the workaround, you could add a different date in there. But again, ask an agent, because I don't know if it would just be better for you just to pull in, because again, this is only a 6-page document, or 5-page, whatever it is. It might be easier for just to say, the listing contract, I'm just gonna redo.
Okay.
Something like the consumer notice, you might say, oh yeah, let me just change the date on that kind of thing. So again, better to ask an agent those questions, or better yet, our broker, Debbie Breen. As our broker, she would definitely have the answer for that kind of thing. Sometimes agents are of the idea of, look, I want everything to be the same date and time right now so I don't get confused. It may just be easier just to pull in those documents and start fresh kind of thing.
Okay.
In the same loop, you can archive things as you want and pull in new and call them the new pieces there. So
Yeah, I was thinking more like you might land the listing presentation today, but then you give them homework, they have to pack and clean, then maybe you have a stager.
or the
and a
photos are going to
photographer.
come later on.
So it might take weeks.
I
before-
believe that, and I don't know whether it's here under the additional terms or perhaps up here under special clauses, I don't know.
Okay.
I think there is a way for you to write in here, I'm taking the listing now, it won't go in the MLS until, no later than June 30th, once photos have been done, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Again, don't trust me, I'm not an agent, but I believe that when I was working as an assistant, I had seen those kinds of pieces being added in there, the stipulation that it's not going live in there kind of thing. Terry, as an experienced agent, do you have anything to offer on that, or no?
I always thought once you have a signed listing contract that it needs to go into Bright in so many days.
And the idea too is, now that Bright has that coming soon piece, I don't know. So that's really a great question to ask our broker. What would they do? Is it good enough just to have in a contract piece? And again, this is getting way beyond my expertise since I'm not an agent. I do want to point out in here that we have added this clause in here that is on every form in here. Seller acknowledges that the broker has no control over the completeness, accuracy, or timeliness of any information appearing on the internet site that is not directly controlled by the broker. Basically, this is our cover piece of, we can't control how fast Trulia, Zillow, and all the rest of them are going to pick it up, and how fast updates might be picked up, if updates are picked up at all. So again, in this day and age, we've had to add that piece in there to say, okay, we want to control everything, but you can't control everything. And then I'm just going to come down here and sign this as Princess Leia again, all right? So, and notice each time I'm saving these, I'm only saving them and not sending them to Mickey. The reason is, I don't want to send one here, 10 minutes later, I may get a phone call, another form goes 20 minutes later, or the next day. No, I want to complete all this paperwork in my time fashion, then I'm going to send it to Mickey in 2 groups. Terry, you have a
I
question?
have a question. When you're in this and you're with your sellers, can they sign right on your computer?
That's an advanced group, not this group,
But
okay?
it is-
That is called edit in private, and yes, they should be able to do it with you right there in front of you. But again, that's the advanced class and not this one. So we can talk about that, on a one-on-one, but I'm just moving on through this. This is the basic version, but great question to ask. I'm going to skip a couple of these pieces in here. I do like to open up the lead-based paint one because of the idea that, we're going to let it autofill the pieces in here. I just use this one as an example because as we are getting further and further away from 1978, basically they're thinking that most people say there's no lead paint in here, or I have no knowledge of lead-based paint. So it's automatically putting Mickey's initials here as the I have no knowledge. Now the example that I'm going to show you right here is a way that I can foolproof this piece so that Mickey doesn't sign on the next line of I have knowledge, okay? Because again, if you send things to clients electronically, they sometimes have a tendency to get click happy. And again, this is not on the record. They sometimes get click happy, so you might want to avoid them signing in both places by taking it away their ability to do that. So right now, if I hover over this, you can see there in really small print, can be signed by the seller, Mickey Mouse, right? So even though it doesn't have his initials there, if he clicked there, he could sign there, all right? So to change this, what I'm gonna do is click it so it turned green. Do you see how it turned green right there? And what that did was, that then pulled up this little drop-down menu. I'm going to assign that one to no one. And just to be clear, because Mickey, you know, sometimes gets a little clicky, I'm gonna do the other boxes in that general area so that you can see, and again, I will have had the conversation with Mickey. Hey Mickey, I'm gonna make it so that you only sign here. Are you okay with that? Just make it easier on their piece so you don't have to redo things later on, that kind of stuff, okay? I'm going to leave this one, I don't want to do that. I'm going to leave the boxes down here the way they are set because I want you to see the difference. When we see this as electronic signing, these 3 boxes will be gone and these 3 boxes will remain. Here's a little side note. When else might you use this? Agreement of sale, inspection section. Inspection section, again, I suggest having the conversation, especially for electronic signing. This is for electronic signing. Have the conversation with your client before you do the agreement of sale. John, tell me what inspections you want to have. Now, when you set up the agreement of sale, it's going to be elect on the one side, waive on the right side. If you send it to your client and they get click happy and they're not careful, they may elect all of them when they meant to waive some of them. Or they may elect and waive, that's probably more the situation, and now you're up in arms going, what in the world are we doing, kind of thing. So again, a way that you could make it so that it's easy for them to be able to do would be, okay, they're having home inspection, leave that one as elected, get rid of the ones, assign the ones over here for waive to no one. And then when he receives it, it will only be seen as this over here. Now again, if that is not recommended by your mentors, don't do what I just told you to do, okay? I'm just giving you one idea. I've also heard it the other way, that somebody will say, well, we're gonna elect them all, and then we can do an addendum later on that says, no, we're declining to do that, okay? But again, in this multiple offer situation, real estate world that we're in these days, that could be something that makes them say, wow, they want all the inspections, this one wants none of the inspections or only 1 or 2 inspections. You know, I don't know whether that could waive it or not, kind of a thing, okay? So again, I'm not an agent, don't go by what I'm telling you, I'm just giving you an alternate piece. If you have the conversation with your clients before, you could make it easy for them to not get confused once they receive that document, okay? Now, if I'm wrong, don't anybody on this tape do that. So I'm gonna now come down to the bottom section here. And there is a place for me, the agent, to go ahead and sign now. And because it's the first time on this form, it pops it up again. And then I'm gonna come down here and sign now here, okay? Save, and we're gonna back out. Now I think you kind of understand how you're gonna be doing your forms and things like that. But even the seller's property disclosure, I would typically, as an assistant, open it up, let it generate the property address and the client's name, and jump right out of there. I've also had an agent sit with me and say, nope, I don't open it whatsoever because we're not supposed to have anything to do with that, so I don't even open it. Do whatever your preference is, okay? The consumer notice down here, this is the one that I know for a fact. If we put the broker number in, it was gonna pull in the broker number. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make up my license number there so that it can autofill the pieces in here. And as we take a look at it over here, you will see Mickey's information has been filled in, our information has been filled in here. I will sign now for me. One thing I forgot to mention is that if we go to print this paperwork out, and I'm gonna show you how to do that as well. If you go to print this out, it will not say Mickey sign here, it will just be a blank box there. It's when you send it electronically to Mickey, that's when his orange box is gonna show up there as Mickey sign here, as I had down here, okay? Notice that since it dates it and timestamps it, I don't have to come over here and put the date in there because it's done over there. All right, so now, we're gonna pretend at this point that we have opened the forms that we are going to send to our client. When it comes to closing costs, I will just interject here that many times agents are doing their closing costs in Bright, in the MLS system, right? If you're doing that in the MLS system, then this is really just a placeholder. It's just there to say, hey, don't forget to put your closing costs in here, in which case, when I go to send this to my client, I'm going to archive this one and pull in the new one. Before you send it to your client, though, electronically, you want to add their signature box in there, okay? But if you're printing it out and taking it with you to your client to do in person, you're just going to add that paper to the pile that you're taking with you and have them sign it in person, kind of thing, okay? The archive piece, I did forget to mention this. Dotloop has no delete. Dotloop only has archive. Dotloop keeps paperwork in here for 7 years. Legally, that's what you're required to save paperwork for. We are just about getting to that 7-year mark with Dotloop. So I called them last year and I said, what happens when the 7-year mark hits? Is the agent notified that their file is about to disappear? And their answer was yes. They haven't gotten to it yet. So we've been using Dotloop since Dotloop started, basically, because they haven't gotten to it yet. But yes, the information they're telling me is that yes, you, the agent, would then be notified, hey, this file is about to disappear, either save it someplace else, or it's going to disappear. Many agents don't want to be bothered with thinking about it later on, so many times when they're doing their Dotloop pieces in here, they might just copy that paperwork into a Google Drive, or if you're of the old school mindset, print out that paperwork and put it into a paper file where you have filing cabinets up, lining the wall down in your basement of all the deals that you've done. But most agents now are going more paperless, and that's where Google Drive really comes in handy. Google has its own drive, which is a storage piece in there. They give you something like 15 megabytes to start with, and then you can purchase something more, kind of a thing. So again, you can look that way. Or store flash drives. Flash drives are this big as opposed to, whole filing cabinets down there. Terry?
Does Keller Williams save any files longer than the 7
Nope.
years?
Not deals, things like this. Agent files, I'm sure, because we still have paper files for that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I don't anticipate that we are saving any of these pieces beyond the 7 years that I'm aware of. I haven't been told anything different from Becca or anything like that. So again, you have the ability to archive something. You do not have the ability to delete it out. The good news is that when you do archive something over here, and I scroll back up here to show the archived, it has improved greatly in that